Hello, everybody. I think we are live now. It is great to be with you, everybody. We'll let everyone kind of get settled in, but we are excited to be with you today. We have a lot of really fun stuff to talk about, I think, Soni, right? It is great to meet you all. So I have talked to a few of you on social media before. I'm normally behind the camera, but today excited to be live with Soni. So my name is Ryan, and I think you all know and love Soni already. But
hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here with you. We are live from Nashville in our new offices, so we're really excited to be here. Ryan, you may hear a little bit of different construction. We're still in the process. I think you all know how moves go. It always takes longer than what you expect. So really excited to be with you again. Yay.
And this is a exciting month because February is National Embroidery Month.
Right.
Of course, Valentine's Day, which we all love. But for us, it's especially exciting because it's 30 years since Husqvarna Viking's first embroidery machine, right? So 30 years ago.
30 years. And you know, Ryan, I have to admit, 30 years ago, embroidery, I was there. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that it's been 30 years. I'm not that old, doggone it.
And time flies when you're having fun.
It
so
does.
I think it's been
really
a fun
does.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Soni, we have a few questions that we're going to go through, just talking about, I think, where embroidery was 30 years ago, where we got started, how we progressed over the past 30 years, and then where we are today, right? So, and we've got a couple of exciting things behind us that I know we'll talk about as well. But maybe we just get started with 1994, first embroidery machine. Can you maybe speak about what that was like and really what our first time embroidery was?
Yeah, so for some of you, Ryan, I'm going to have you scoot over just a little bit because this is the #1 plus. And I know there are those of you out there that have seen, used, worked with the #1 plus. We had these great little cards that came in and out, and also the information. And actually, this is a big change. You should not take these cards out if you have this machine still. You shouldn't take them out with them on. So I just want to pull this out if I can. I'm at a bad angle. I'm going to turn my back to you all. Sorry about that. But basically, and I'm going to switch to the other camera, Ryan, so people can maybe see this a little bit. But you had your card, and then you had your other little, actually, this was the control, and this was the card that had all the information on it. And so, holy cow, now our machines are Wi-Fi capable, right? Now you've got all sorts of other stuff going on. So this really is like the start. And let's go back, because I say this is the start. There may be someone out there, and I think I'm just going to leave that right like that. Someone out there that maybe saw a poem machine, or it was called a poem.
Okay.
And it was a little gray machine, 80 by 80 inch hoop, which is basically, guys, 3 inches by 3 inches. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And same with the #1 plus. The hoop that came with the #1 plus was 4 inches by 4 inches, 100 by 100. Where have we come today, right, Ryan?
And Soni, what is the size, our largest size now with the Designer Epic 3? What size is that?
Oh my gosh, it's a turnable hoop. I brought it in here
at that.
So this is actually a little bit bigger than the original #1 plus hoop. And this is the largest hoop. It's crazy.
You can fit quite a few of those.
Yes, you can. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can. So it is 460 by, actually I said that wrong, 450 by 440 or something. Like, it's really big, everybody. It's really big.
Especially when you compare it to this. That's amazing, right? To see.
Yeah, it really, really is. So I think, Ryan, as we were talking ahead of time, we were saying, like, what are the differences? And really, embroidery size it's huge difference, right? It's a huge difference. So I don't know how many of you worked on the #1 plus, if you still remember that particular machine. That's when I started in the industry. So again, it really, goodness gracious, it's a long time ago. But it is just amazing how we've come, what has changed. So, yeah.
And Soni, earlier you were telling me about something kind of an interesting switch in design from this machine to the Epic 3, which is how the embroidery unit was built into the machine, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for any of you who are embroiderers from, oh, I don't know, 20 years ago instead of 30 years ago, we know that the embroidery arm on all of our Husqvarna Viking machines, they were out here. And that's where the way the Epic 3 is too. The arm moves this way. Well, I don't know, Ryan, it's kind of hard to see, but I want you all to kind of look in here, and maybe we can do a quick close-up later, but the embroidery arm came inside. So you didn't have the area out here. It all came inside. So the C, what we call the C, the inside part of the machine, that was as big as you could get for embroidery. That's why our hoops were so much smaller, is because basically you could only fit whatever was in there. So it just amazes me. It just amazes me. So.
Well, so that's really exciting to see kind of how the machines have shifted. How has embroidery itself changed? So, as far as like what you were able to embroider or the type of embroidery you were doing, how has that changed with kind of our new machines that are out today?
So that when we were talking, again, Ryan and I have been talking. We've been
getting excited, getting ready. Yeah,
actually, really, I think one of the biggest things about it truly is the stabilizers and how we hoop. Okay, so that may sound kind of weird, but when I say how we hoop, so everybody, I think many of you out there are embroiderers maybe for some time. And when we took our hoops, right? So whatever hoop it was, now I'm laughing at myself. And the reason why I like to laugh at myself is I'm always like, do as I say, not as I do. You should never hoop on your lap. Ryan, you should never hoop on your lap.
Write that down.
Write that down. You need a hard, flat surface. So like a surface, like a table, something like this. What we used to do, and I'm just going to grab one of my samples that I'll talk about here in just a moment. But what we used to do, this is just a little chambray shirt. When we hooped, and some of you write in the chat, okay? So you're going to keep, Amy's helping us today, by the way. So she's helping us. Thank you, Amy. I want you guys to hear, to blow up Amy's chat, because what we used to do is we used to put our stabilizer, put our fabric, and I think you'll see me. I think it's better to be here. And we put our fabric in here. But then when we would put this in, right? So I'm just going to do this really fast. I'm not doing a proper hooping here, but I am going to do a hooping nonetheless, because once I get this in, and I say that, okay. Everyone, this is the other thing I'm going to tell you that you have to do. So you're going to see my back for a moment. You should always stand up when you're hooping as well. So here we go. It's live, so I got to make sure I get this right. Okay. Undo this. Okay. There we go. So now, everybody, I've got this hooped. I'm going to ask the question of you, and this is what I want you to kind of blow up Amy's chat, is once we got to this, when we first started embroidering, right? Once we got to this, what did we say to do? I know you've heard it. Pull this as tight. So pull your fabric as tight as it could be until it was drum tight. I did it so many times. How many of you have done it? I know some of you have done it. When we do this, that's the worst thing we can do for embroidery, but that's what we were taught, Ryan. So that's what we did.
It's changed, right?
It has changed. So basically, when you hoop, the hoop gives it enough pressure just by simply putting that in. You don't have to pull it drum tight. And for anybody, again, a lot of my samples at the very beginning, I wouldn't show, because when you take that out, it squishes up. And then your embroidery doesn't look nice. It doesn't look flat. So that is one of the biggest things about changes. When you ask about changes, it's all about how you hoop and better knowledge about hooping as well. So Amy, I got to ask you, did everybody say, yes, I did that?
Yes, I did some drum is what she was saying
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting that we, you kind of, when something is so new like that, a new technique, you kind of think we know the right way to do it, but then as you do it more and have more machines that do it, you learn more, right? It's interesting.
And I think the other thing is when embroidery came out for the home use, so for any of us as home users, we were doing what industrial people were talking about, right? And so because we were doing what industrial people were saying, they weren't necessarily the best techniques for home.
Sure.
So we've learned, and that's a good thing. And that's as we change machines, but the hooping, how we hoop is a huge difference. And the other thing is the stabilizers, Ryan.
Yes, you were mentioning this.
Yeah, so when we first started embroidery, I have a couple here. We really had two stabilizers, again, coming from more industrial sort of things. One was a tearaway, still what I use
Trusty,
so much today, tearaway. And then, and I am talking fast too. I get so excited about this. So please, everybody, if you have questions. But anyway, the other one is a cutaway. So this doesn't tear, but it's, feel how heavy that is.
Yeah, that's pretty thick.
I mean,
yeah.
So what happened is our stabilizers, when we wanted to do like lighter weight things,
Didn't work.
they didn't work. So when stabilizers kind of, I'm going to say grew up, if I can permit me, evolved, they kind of grew up. We started getting really nice, like this is also.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, this is a cutaway, but I think the cool thing is unlike this, I know, let's see if we can get a better shot of this, actually, Ryan. So there's my hoop. I'm just going to smooth that out of the way. But here's this cutaway. Just, you can see it's very stiff, right? It's not very nice. We now have these beautiful whisper web cutaways. Look at how soft that is. So that really makes a huge difference in how your stabilizers work. Definitely. And how the embroidery stands up. And then there's two other stabilizers that I think were game changers. We have had in the past water-soluble stabilizers, and they look like, actually, I think I have one here. Yeah, they look like a little bit like saran wrap, right? You can see that. And they work just fine. But I use this as a topper because I think it doesn't give, I'm going to have a little pile.
Our stabilizer
That's
pile.
right, our stabilizer pile. Our, the guys that clean up, they're going to wonder what in the world is all this stuff over here. But this didn't give a lot of support underneath, right? So now we have water solubles that look more like fiber. And so this was a game changer for me because that gave the support. And then we also have that water soluble. And I know you can't see me doing anything, guys, right now, but I really am. It's actually a sticky water soluble. Those things, the sticky, the nicer fibrous water soluble there, and then this piece here that was like the iron-on, but the softer cutaways, those were truly the game changers for me to make my embroidery better.
That's amazing. And it sounds like that kind of what has happened is we started with, as you said, two options, and then you were just wanting to do different techniques and use different fabrics, and so these new stabilizers came out that were made and designed specifically for that, which makes sense that you want the best for what you're doing.
Yeah, and the people that are with us, and I know as embroiderers for home use, Ryan, we push things a lot harder, right? We ask to make things easier for us. And so because of that, the stabilizers make our life so much easier.
Yeah. And isn't that what Husqvarna Viking is all about? Is you want to have the joy of sewing, not the hard pieces to it, but enjoy it and really be able to do great stuff.
It is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is. It is. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
So it's really very cool. So
So maybe that's a good transition to, again, talking about the first two stabilizers that
Yep.
came out. What were your first projects, Soni, that you did with this first embroidery machine here?
the number one plus, because of the size and the other, and for any of you who are actually calling in from maybe Europe or even I think Canada, it was called the Orchidea because we had flower names at the time for our different beautiful machines. But in the US, we decided to call it the number one plus because we felt it was just that top, right? It was
Plus.
plus the number one and so much more. The projects, Ryan, were actually kind of fun, and I'm gonna flip over here so we can see. This was one of my very first, and I know Amy said, there we go. One of my very first digitized projects. And guys, I know it looks like it's on a hat because it is on a hat, but the only reason why it's on a hat, it was not a hat hoop at that time. It was sticky that I put underneath to stick it to this and then ironed it on. So, but this little dog, that was one of my first digitizing projects. So that was like one of the first things I ever did. I love this one. I made this project, the Gone Fishing Guy. I made this project for my husband. I put it on a shirt for him. Guess what? He never got the shirt back. This is now in my little sample project right here and doing all sorts of fun little things with that, my little Gone Fishing Guide. So this was two of the very, very first things. And Ryan, I got it. Here's one more, and I'm going to ask you to help me hold this.
Yes.
This one, I love this one, and we got to come my way, I think,
Yep.
a little bit. Okay, so this is called a day of skiing. And some of you, if there's any of you that took any of my classes early on, we did this really early on with embroidery, but this was our very first like editing class, right? And so this was our beginning. And it said, when I got to the slope, I realized that I looked just like everyone else. So my friend, just kind of, we can flip this. There we go. My friend gave me a red scarf. So we changed the color in the scarf. The wind was blowing all day. And it blew off my hat. And so now that my hat was gone, my hair went wild, and then my nose turned red, and then I hit a mogul and screamed and lost my skis. So these were the fun things that we got to do, I think. We had to maybe be, I would say, a little more creative with our thought processes with this. So kind of fun that way. So those were really some of the very first projects that we did, Ryan.
That's
which
amazing.
is fun.
And Amy is telling us that a few people remember that class
Oh
as
my
well.
gosh.
And got to attend that, so that's great.
Well, you all are with me then, so I appreciate that. I still have that because I think that was one of the most, that was really fun. It was very clever. So
I love that too, because I think even today, if you're first starting with embroidery software, that's a great kind of get the basics of change this out, change this color.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of fun principles too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Edit, take something away, put a color in, and it is really kind of fun. So anyway, so those were some of the first projects in the size, right?
That's great.
That you don't think about so much anymore.
That's very cool.
So
So those were a few of your first projects. What about Soni? What are some of your most memorable projects? Have you made gifts, or have you made anything that really you just remember embroidering over the years that you want to share?
I do. There are actually a couple, Ryan, and I'll fish through my samples here. But I think one of the most memorable ones is when Husqvarna Viking launched or came out with what was called the designer. Oh goodness. Oh my gosh. I was going to say designer 2 actually. So we had the designer 1 and the designer 2. There we go. I'm sorry. Yeesh. I was like, goodness, I see the picture in my mind. The designer too had a similar card system. The machines themselves were bigger at that time, so they had moved the embroidery already over. But they came out with a, really nice, it was very Swedish, very European color scheme. And so for me, this is one of my favorite ones. And this jacket, okay, and I don't know if
Can we see that there?
or maybe we can, let's see if we can get it on here so people can see a little bit more. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this all the way
That's
down,
beautiful.
this jacket. Yep. And even to the end over here, right? So all of this is one of my most memorable projects, Ryan. And I love the designs, but guys, the interesting thing about this is the hoop wasn't that much bigger. And so this was, I think, when one of the things that happened is you became a great hooper when you did this, because there was one hooping, here's another hooping like that, here's another hooping, that sort of thing. So as we went through, we got really good at stuff like that.
It makes sense, yeah.
And the reason why, the pictures to me, or the colors were very special to me, because this is a really bad color on me, by the way. But I found the fabric for the dress that I made too. And so putting it all together, it really was a nice addition. So that's one of my favorite projects, Ryan.
And Soni, I would guess that you weren't using my Soni embroidery software at the time, right? So how were you, doing designing and different things, digitizing different things like that?
Yeah. We weren't using my Sonnet, but we were using software.
Okay.
And our Husqvarna Viking software first started with DOS.
Okay, yeah.
So that's kind of scary. I know those of you who had fun with me with this little guy, you probably remember the Apple too. and the Apple was digitizing in DOS software.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So we did have software. It just wasn't as easy,
Sure.
right? And so one of my favorite samples, and this is going to be another big one, in the embroidery software, that was a great transition, Ryan, whether you knew it or not. In the embroidery software today, we have lots of different modules, one of them being a photo stitch module. We called it back then, we called it picture stitch rather than photo stitch. And with the picture stitch, and again, some of you who have been in my classes, you will recognize this quilt. As we get older in our lives, things become more and more precious to us. And I'm going to have Ryan help me hold this up.
Oh, wow.
This is my family tree quilt. And so this is my grandma and grandpa Rodabaugh, my grandma and grandpa Trotsky. And then if we go down a little further, my dad and my mom on their wedding day, and then us kids down at the bottom.
That's amazing.
And for those of you who are maybe seeing this for the first time, this is all stitches. So all one color of thread, but all stitches. So let's see if we can get a close-up view of one of these, Ryan. So let's try this one right here. So there we go.
Good.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know if you guys, whoops, now I let it fall. There we go. That's my mom. And that was her on her wedding day. And she was wearing a hat at the time. It was a little different. This was a long time ago. But if you can see, like right down there, we can go up, like right in here, you can see that's all stitches.
That's amazing.
And so when we talk about, embroidery and embroidery software and stuff, I will tell you that the program itself hasn't changed much, but we've gotten bigger options, bigger hoops.
Definitely.
To be able to work with this. But this is what embroidery means to me, right?
That's amazing, Soni.
And I am every time I show this again, as I'm older, my family is not around as much anymore, and so this is why we sew. I don't know how many of you guys out there, but this is why we sew. It just makes it so so wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us.
So-
That's amazing. So, Soni, you had these are all from photographs, right?
They are, excuse me.
And how did you upload? Uploading, or how did you actually get them to stitch up?
Well, so way back when, everybody, when we first started with this, we actually had to like scan in things.
Yes.
However, in another iteration of this, what I did, I just used my camera and just took a picture of the photo.
Okay.
So on my phone, and it just has to be like a JPEG or a PNG or something. And the software does most of the work. But you do have to, like, let's see. Let's say if we look at this one right here. Yeah, I had to adjust the background a little bit. And the one that we look close up on, this one, I had to adjust the background a little bit. So you do have to make adjustments, but there's so much software out there today that makes that easy, right? It wasn't so easy when I first did this, but to me, again, that's why we sell. And those are like two of my favorite
Those
ones.
are beautiful, yeah. And I mean, speaking of software too, coming from the cards to now with the cloud and being able to just send it, pretty crazy how far we have come with that, right?
I know it. I even think about, I shouldn't say it, but I just saw a documentary sort of thing about original, like, smartphones, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think today where we have come from, right? So you're right, Ryan. We had little boxes. It was a little box that we put that in, and we had to program, hooked up to our computer and program the little card. Now you can send it from you're sitting on your, basically on your couch. You want to send it to your machine, you're good to go.
Yeah.
I'm spoiled now. I think you know what? I hope that many of you who have grown with Husqvarna Viking found that not only, Ryan, not only are we, bigger hoops, different stabilizers, embroidery designs, but the ease of use has really also progressed. I truly remember, I think I still have, actually, all the samples.
That's 30 years of sample, right?
Don't say that. But like on a dress like this, that's just embroidery all the way down. So it's all the way down to the bottom of the dress. Well, to line this up, you had to be very careful when you line this up, because you move through the design. So stitch by stitch, you could always do that with Husqvarna Viking. So you go stitch by stitch through the design, you get to the stitch you want to line up, then you kind of move stuff around in the hoop itself, and then you'd have to go back to the beginning of the design. Now we have, exact positioning, we have hoop scanning, it's just so much easier. However, those of you, I'm talking to you guys that have been doing this like me, we became really good at aligning and hooping before we ever had the help.
Right.
So I think we're just all like,
Used
oh
to it,
my
yeah.
gosh, this is like the best.
That's great.
So
Well, that's a good transition. We have good transitions today, Soni. That is a good transition to just thinking about those different innovations and technologies that we just talked about. How has that kind of changed the way that you approach your projects and approach embroidery? How has it opened up new things and given you kind of new ideas to do?
Yeah, as far as I've always worked with embroidery software, right?
Yeah.
You know that.
Yes.
So I guess for me, how everything has changed is, I still go to my embroidery software when I design. And the other thing I still do, and I'm going to just show this little picture. It'll might glare a little bit. That's okay. I don't know that we can. Yeah, I got it in a pocket protector. That's
safe.
my age, right? But you can see that shirt. I still go to magazines and look for things. This was one of the first designs I ever created for the plus hoop. This one, see that right there? Actually, you had to stitch it in two hoopings. One there, one there. Amy, tell us how many people, when I say plus hoop, they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. But the plus hoop designs, I'm going to show you two other ones. This little jacket, again, super simple design. The jacket itself, I really liked because I
Love the
created a
pockets,
little,
yeah.
I used the triangle buttons with this is a real pocket, by the way. So those are like special pockets, but having something simple like this was, again, you stitched one there, one there. So, and this other dress, I'm a little, well, I guess good or bad, I can still fit into it. So, but this was also a plus hoop. And so what you ended up doing is you stitched only part here and then another part there. So with those, I guess I'm not really answering your question, Ryan, except to say that my designing has really kind of, it's evolved,
Yeah.
but it still works the same, right? You're in the software, I design it, but then I just send it to my machine. I don't have to worry about cards or anything like that.
It's probably nice.
And I also, with some of the other, other websites out there that you get inspiration from, I look at things, but really for me, it's what is it that I need, right? Sure. What is it that I want to show? I put on our Epic 3 here, I'm loving the ability to use the free arm.
Yeah, right? Isn't that great?
Yeah, and so I'm making little onesies for friends. I don't have any kids, no grandkids, nothing, but they love them, and they're like, "Oh, Soni, can you do this?" So, that's how I guess you're evolving for the different things that you can do,
yeah.
like the free arm hoops and the specialty techniques hoop, and that really super big, mega turnable hoop, I think is the name. So you just do that, and still on the computer for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love what you said too about how the changes that we've seen in the past 30 years have been because it makes people's lives easier, it makes what they do easier, and it makes being able to do more things like this just quicker and simpler and allows more people to do it too, which is great.
And Ryan, I did not bring this sample, unfortunately, but I neglected this one, but when you said that, it made me think, so I am a garment sewer, right? I love to sew garments. Yeah. You've seen several different things. When people sew garments, the last thing you always do is you put in a buttonhole, right? And again, our Husqvarna Viking machines, we've had great buttonholes for a long time. However, I want to challenge all these people out here, all of you guys, because I now almost exclusively do my buttonholes in embroidery.
Okay.
And that's one of the beautiful things you can do with the Epic 3 and, some of our other machines. But the reason why I love that is it always is precise. I can get it right in the exact placement.
Yeah.
So like buttonholes to me were scary. And I don't know about you all, but to me, they were scary because it's the last thing you put on a garment. And is it in the right space?
Is it going to
look
be good? Is it going to ruin anything?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like I said, I wish I would have remembered because I did a really pretty light raw silk blouse, put buttons on it, and I'm like, okay, here we go. But I was able to use that sticky stabilizer,
there we go.
So the sticky stabilizer, put it down, get it in the exact right spot. So it really did. Again, the more we were talking with someone earlier today, Ryan, that is like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you know that you can, then it's like, oh my gosh, think about how your world changes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, really neat.
That's great. Cool. So those are great. So we've talked a little bit about where we've come. We talked a little bit about what you're doing now and how that's changed. Let's talk about the third part of that, Soni, which I think is the future. So how do you see, I guess, what are your dreams of embroidery and kind of where do you see embroidery continuing to evolve over the next 30 years?
Yeah. You know what? as far as the future goes for me, Ryan, it really is just, I personally am okay with the hoop sizes we have. I don't have to keep, but the way specialty techniques are working today, and actually doing more like quilting in the hoop. I can't wait to see how we can evolve that. We do have some designs are on the machine. We've got some design collections that are in the My Sonnet library that are quilt in the hoop, but I think that's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I am not a huge quilter today. However,
you might be soon.
However, right? I think as we make it easier and easier and easier to do that, I've made my share of quilts, don't get me wrong, but my joy is in doing the stuff here. So I think that's going to be one thing. I think we're going to build on that.
That's great.
And then other specialty things like behind you, Ryan, there's felting. How do we on that blue cape, right? So using other techniques, using other things that we are actually, I would love to see eventually like painting and sewing together. How can we do? There's so many things. I think that would be really fun. And maybe even being on some, working. I work today on paper a little bit, so I will embroider on paper, but how can we do more with that too? So many, I don't know if anyone wants to put in the chat, what you think of, what is the next dream embroidery, right? But I see it and also one thing that we kind of forgot about, Ryan, that has evolved with us is, using our apps, right?
That's right.
I will always, I'm here at the office, right? So I'm here at the office. I sign into my machine here at the office. I forget to sign out. Someone else comes in the next day. My phone's going off at home because it's telling me that someone's using it. And I love the apps in that it allows me to really, know what's going on, just kind of realize that, I need to change a needle, or not a needle yet, but you never know in the future, but change thread or put my bobbin in or
color,
do different color, that sort of stuff. So that's a big deal for me. I think that's going to evolve too. Yeah, I think that's going to be neat.
And I remember you mentioning earlier that when embroidery first came out, we first got our first embroidery machines, it was kind of fun to sit there and watch it and see it stitch out. And I'm sure there's some of our viewers today that still enjoy doing that. But I think for the majority of us, having the app now to be able to start your embroidery, step out, maybe make dinner, maybe go for a walk, and then you can know, okay, it's done, or I need to change a color. So it really allows you to, you can still watch it if you want to, but it also allows you to, makes it a little bit easier, I think, too.
When the app first came, small story, sorry guys, but small story. When the app first came out, Ryan, I was doing a project that had to get done. None of you ever do that. You've never done
never
that.
Last minute.
Never
Right?
last minute. So it had to be done, but I was traveling. So it had to be done, and I had to mow my lawn before I left. So I had my phone in my back pocket when I'm out mowing, change color, buzz. So I stop, go in, come back out, keep on mowing. So I was able to do two things at once.
Are you seeing we're more advanced in the mowers that we allow the apps now? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but I knew when my machine needed to change, so that was the most important thing. So it was just it was an aha moment for me. It's like, wow, I can really do two things at once.
Yeah,
so
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, a couple questions, Soni. So this is one that we had not talked about. So this is going to be a little off the cuff, but you talked about paper. You talked about kind of a couple other projects you've done.
Yeah.
What can you think of as the most unusual thing that you have embroidered?
Ooh. Wow. Well, I guess maybe I am. Maybe I'm not as adventurous as some other people, because I know some of our educators, they'll cork and boards and different things like that. One of the most interesting things for me was leather, where it was real leather, not fake leather, and it was like really beautiful strips of leather that I made a belt out of. But guys, with paper, with leather, with things that, you know, you can perforate. I will tell you, make sure that you change the density of your design. I'm sorry, that's the teacher in
That's
me,
a
Ryan,
good hint.
but you know, if you're doing a satin stitch and it's super close together, you're just going to perforate the paper, or you're just going to But the leather was probably the most interesting thing for me. I'm trying to think. I mean, I worked on boat covers. I've done different things like that. So maybe that's more unusual, but the leather was the most memorable for me because I really had to, and I used cutwork needles. So I cut holes in the leather too with the needles. So that was kind of fun.
And I know that we also have some videos on our Facebook page. You can see, we have a baseball, we have toilet paper. There's some fun ones that there's a lot you can do with embroidery.
People are, like I said, maybe more adventurous than me, but that's good. That's great.
I think that's our educator Meredith had a few of those. Yeah, it's fun to get creative.
Yeah, Mickey had the baseball.
Mickey had some,
so that's great.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, very fun.
Very good.
And yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see all of the sort of different applications that you can add embroidery to, right? I know that we think about it as a way to personalize things, a way that, you know, if you get a, you know, ready to wear garment, or if you go to the thrift store and get something, embroidery is really that way to personalize and kind of add your own touch to things, right?
I do have to show another sample,
please.
And real quick. I know there may be another question, but this one actually was one of my favorite ones ever. And again, so you asked, I gave you 2. This is 3, but this is, and I try and bring it up just a little bit. It's hard. It's a little hard to see, but this truly is on Aida cloth. So, or Aida cloth, however you pronounce it. This is truly the cross stitcher cloth. And when I show this in person, and I'm never going to get it close enough to the camera, but people think that I took the time and effort, Ryan, to like start and put things almost one by one. And this is cross stitcher. And I will tell you that's part of the software. But the beautiful thing about this piece, and you can take a look, as long as you hoop properly, and in the software it told us like what size of cross stitch I should use, it looks perfect. It really, really does.
That's what you did by hand.
It does. I know I just offended several hands cross stitcher people out there. Please continue. I know you love your craft. I'm so bad at it that this is how I can do it. So
Very cool. Well, we'd love to open it up to any questions. If anybody does have any questions about embroidery, we'd love to hear stories too, right? I mean, I'm sure everyone has kind of their own embroidery journey that they've been on and projects that they've done as well.
Yeah, we I know that again, until we started talking 30 years and you asked me to do this, I'm like, no, I couldn't have been embroidering that long, Ryan. No way, but I have been. And it really is, it's so many people out there. Again, a lot of our educators from Husqvarna Viking, they are so talented, and you all have taken embroidery to the next level, right? So I think that's so cool, Ryan. I really do.
So we do have a couple people excited about the idea of thinking about the future and kind of giving their ideas for this dream embroidery machine. One person suggested a machine that hoops for you.
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't that be cool? Now, our Epic 3 does not do that, but I know that we have a lot of features that make it a lot easier, right? With the Epic 3 to attach your hoops and attach your embroidery unit.
Yeah, but I can see it already, a little arm coming over. Oh my gosh, guys. And you're right. Just the way that the hooping is, it's just a push down. It makes it so easy for that.
We're getting there,
I can see that. But to that also, you know, again, the needle threader for me was a game changer. Yeah. So that was huge too. Yeah. So yes, other comments. I see other comments coming through.
Yeah. Machine that changes the thread for you. That would be pretty cool.
That would be very
cool. A little arm or something, a robot that does that.
Yeah. That would be fun. That would be really, really fun.
And then I know that we have a lot of people that either have had the One Plus or still have it, and also had the original software as well. So I think it's cool to just see. And even I loved when Soni brought these out and we had them next to each other, because even if you look at like this embroidery unit itself, not even the machine, but the unit, is larger than our first embroidery machine. So it's pretty amazing to see how it's evolved.
Transition, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And I remember demonstrating that number 1+, Ryan, and I sitting at a show and we did such fun stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's just more fun
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And one thing we haven't mentioned, Soni, is the screen, right? So now we
Oh.
have these beautiful screens on our machines,
Yeah.
and we don't have those in our machines.
Yeah. The only way to know what your embroidery really was actually was here. I'm going to switch
Yes.
back here to that. But really, it has little pictures on here. So we had that, and then there was a little booklet. But holy cow! I mean, it's amazing to me. I actually, you can't see because I'm in the way, but I brought a little duck up for my onesie, and so you see exactly what it is, how it's going to stitch. Yeah.
And one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier was using the screen, you can see exactly what the size is going to be.
Yeah.
Now we have the projector too to see
Right.
it actually on your fabric. So it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy
Pretty
to go from
amazing.
here to there.
Yeah.
Just 30
And
years.
and you just said just 30 years. I mean,
Right.
I don't feel 30 years is very long, Ryan. I don't believe that. So I think it's amazing
It's been a lot, yeah.
how quickly our technology has changed.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, someone actually asked about this apron behind us, Soni.
Oh.
Is there any kind of background or story on that?
No great story. It is a really cute apron,
It is.
and what it has, and I don't know if we can get it on here. Well, a little bit actually.
This might go
See
with
it?
our theme of evolving, right?
Evolving,
Yeah.
because these are not embroidery. These are sewing stitches on this apron. So the little applique, there isn't a huge story except that one of our educators, and if you notice, there's really cute rickrack on there. One of our educators was just wanting to play around with some of the new stitches. And the beauty of this, again, she's just so creative that she's like, okay, well, let's see what I can do. So those are always the fun. There is, like I said, there isn't a huge story behind that. And I wish I could say that I did that, but I did not. So that actually Vanessa did that. Yeah, very cool.
Well, and I love that still shows, obviously we're talking about embroidery today, but that still shows the stitching, evolution of stitching too, right?
Yeah.
So, having these built-in stitches and the way that they've evolved over the past few
Right.
years too is pretty crazy as well.
Well, and for anybody with, Husqvarna Viking roots, and that goes even further back than the number 1+. I mean, we used to call, our decorative stitches embroidery.
Yeah,
I mean, that was, people thought of, okay, those are embroidery stitches.
getting close, right?
Yeah, exactly. Versus the bigger hoops and hooping things and having, the fabric being moved by an arm versus the fabric just moving through and the needle moving. So
Yeah.
lots of cool things. Yeah,
That's great.
that's great.
Well, Soni, is there anything else you can think about that has kind of stood out over the past 30 years that we want to kind of maybe close out with today? Anything else that just has, I don't know, that, when you think about embroidery and how far we've come, any kind of closing thought that we want to wrap up with today?
I guess the biggest closing thought for me, Ryan, is the way, Husqvarna Viking, we started way back when, it's been hundreds of years of machines, how the evolution has happened. But where I still think there were lots of people, I guess my closing thought, sorry, there's so many things going through my head. I guess my closing thought really is I'm looking forward to the future as well.
Right.
I can't wait to see where we will go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing where we are now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I love the free arm hoop and the other hoops that we've never been able to do before. But just think where we might be in 10 years.
Yes.
So that's exciting to me. That really is.
And I love what you said too about how, we see how far we've come in 30 years. 30 years, as you mentioned, it really isn't that long of a time to see as much as we've seen. And I think it's exciting too to just note that, 5 years ago, we would not think that we would be sitting
Right.
here with some of the things that
Right.
we have on the Apron
Yeah,
today. So
exactly.
I mean, just our R&D department is amazing, and what they come up with is amazing. And so it's just cool to think that, like you said,
Where are we going to be?
5 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
it's not that long of a
Yeah,
time, but
it is.
a lot happens. So it's great.
So, well, thank you everybody
Thank
for
you.
hanging with us and listening to my silly stories. And hopefully, we'll be back and talk more. And Ryan, thank you for having me.
Yes, Soni, thank you for being with us. And again, thank you all for being with us as well. Thank you all for a great 30 years of embroidery. And we have loved every minute of it. Hope
Yeah.
you all have as well. And we're going to be around for the next 30 years, right,
Yeah,
Soni?
exactly. So take care, guys.
Thank you.